Thank you very much for making time. We are starting with our program for the day. I hope everybody who needs to be here is here. My name is Luther Lebelo. I'm the member of the National High Command of the Umkhonto Wesizwe. And on my left is the leadership that I'll be introducing to yourself, starting with the young gentleman on my right. His name is Qiniso Qibani. He is the convener for the MK Youth League. Followed on his left side is Mr. John Dlela, who is the national organizer and also the national official of the Umkhonto Wesizwe. Followed by our Secretary General, Comrade Floyd Shivambo. And on the far left is Comrade Mkhize, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the MK party. On the far left is Comrade Tando Shozi, who is the convener for the Women's League of the MK. And on the far left as well, we've got General Prince Mukotedi, who is the member of the National High Command. And also we have General Daisy Silwani, who is also a member of the National High Command. The last gentleman on the far left is the Deputy Chairperson of the Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, Comrade Sibilwani. Among us here, there are also conveners, coordinators, both from the ANC Youth League. I see Comrade MK Youth League. I see Comrade Ngateko Mkabela. And the Women's League coordinator, Lindim Charlie. My apologies. I think I was distracted by the TV in my head. Thank you very much. We're not going to waste any time. The process is going to be starting now. I'll be giving over to the Secretary General, Comrade Floyd Shimambo, to start with the program. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Luther Lebelo, a member of the National High Command, and thank you very much to members of the media, to members of the National High Command, the leadership of MK Women and Youth League, the leadership of provinces. I see the convener of Gauteng, Commander Witness Nyembe, is here, and the other conveners of provinces, as resolved by the National High Command officials. I'm going to read a statement on behalf of the national officials of Umkhonto Wesizwe. And the statement will outline some of the key decisions that have been taken in relation to the leadership question, but also in relation to some of the political developments that they are obtaining here in South Africa. So the statement is going to read as follows. We're going to circulate the copies later on. That the national officials of Umkhonto Wesizwe held the second meeting of the year 2025 on Wednesday, the 19th of February 2025. The national officials of Umkhonto Wesizwe are a constitutional structure with decision-making powers in between meetings of the National High Command. The national officials took important decisions for the organization, affecting the MK mother body, the leagues, fraternal organizations, and public representatives. We also received a report from the National Disciplinary Committee, which recommended sentences against members who violated the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe. Umkhonto Wesizwe national officials took note of the fact that we're in a period of continued political and ideological confusion that characterizes the current so-called government of national unity. The irreconcilable differences displayed by members of the GNU during the 2025 State of Nation Address debate demonstrate the obvious fact that there is no unity and there is no possibility of unity amongst the GNU partners. Different ministers and deputy ministers attack each other and delegitimize each other and speak about government as if it is not one entity, but different competing constituencies with contradictory messages. The collapse of the country's budget process and the postponement of the budget last week is just an illustration that the GNU does not have a common program on how to efficiently and responsibly run the affairs of the state. The MK is aware that part of the revenue proposals for 2025 was a proposal to increase the value-added tax, which is VAT, by 2% to 17%. We as Umkhonto Wesizwe reject and are totally opposed to the increase of value-added tax because it is primarily the poor people who will suffer from this senseless increase of value-added tax. There are multiple revenue sources which the state should look into instead of taxing the already struggling poor masses of our people. A reasonable government and responsible government should have mechanisms to broaden the tax base. Government should purposefully pursue matters that relate to tax base erosion and transfer prices. We should also look into how we arrest revenue leakages in municipalities and different spheres of government. The most dependable mechanism for revenue enhancement and development of society is to grow the economy or to develop the productive forces. And we currently know that there is no vision and plan in South Africa to grow the economy. The economy cannot and will not grow if there is no reliable electricity supply. It is clear now that load shedding continues to be part of the business models of the South African government, introduced with the sole purpose of creating a business environment for independent power producers. Load shedding in South Africa is nothing but a mechanism to create space for IPPs and to privatize the generation of electricity. Umkhonto Wesizwe should continue to work continuously and relentlessly on the ground and in all the representative bodies to Umkhonto Wesizwe should continuously work to expose the directionless of the so-called government of national unity. In doing so, the MK will demonstrate that we are a sound and superior alternative to the status quo. In doing so, Umkhonto Wesizwe will pursue an alternate composition of government in South Africa at provincial and national level. In the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the MK will intentionally pursue the reconstitution of government to be led or to include Umkhonto Wesizwe party as the leading and the most supported political party in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The province of KwaZulu-Natal is confronted with multiple crises of misgovernance, failure to deliver water to many communities, collapsing infrastructure, undermining of royal and traditional leadership, the inability of the provincial government to timelessly provide the needed learning and teaching support materials to all schools. The provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal is also failing to protect host communities and Amakhosi against exploitative corporations that are extracting wealth from beneath our soil and leaving no benefit for the host communities. The leadership of Umkhonto Wesizwe has held meetings with the representatives and Amakhosi of Richards Bay Minerals to discuss the various concerns that they are confronted with. We specifically met with the representatives of the Dube, Mkhwanazi, Sokulu, and Bonambi traditional councils. We have agreed on a way forward in terms of the concerns that they had brought to our attention. That one, the Richards Bay Minerals must reinstate and honor the agreement reached between Amakhosi and the host communities with RBM, which is the Richards Bay Minerals, in 2009. That the Richards Bay Minerals must back pay the dividends due to the host communities and Amakhosi, which were stopped in 2019. That the Richards Bay Minerals must back pay the CSI due to the Public Benefit Trust, which was stopped in 2019. That the Richards Bay Minerals must reinstate and honor the Principals Procurement Agreement, which was signed in 2019 and unilaterally nullified in 2020 by Richards Bay Minerals. That the Richards Bay Minerals must stop interfering with the community and public benefit trust. That the Richards Bay Minerals must stop using the state institution, in particular, the South African Police National Interventions Unit, to intimidate Amakhosi and the host communities into submission. That we as Umkhonto Wesizwe are going to pursue political, legal, parliamentary, and mass-based programs to make sure that the demands of the host communities of Richards Bay are benefiting from the mineral resources that are being extracted from beneath their soil. These are struggles of our people, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that in the ultimate end, our people benefit from the wealth of their communities. The Umkhonto Wesizwe meeting of national officials that took place on the 19th of February unanimously affirmed that we have got one constitution and disciplinary code of conduct of Umkhonto Wesizwe, which were adopted on the 26th of September 2024. These documents should be protected and defended by all leaders of the organization. Any attempt to cast aspersions and doubt on the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe poses a real existential threat to the organization. The constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe says that Umkhonto Wesizwe is a progressive total liberation movement fighting for the total political, economic, social, spatial, cultural, and knowledge or ideological freedom and emancipation. The core value of our struggle is the unity of all the progressive forces and demonstrable merit, excellence, and capacity of those who will be deployed to play different roles in the state and other institutions. At the center of our struggle is the instrumentality of unity of the progressive forces. While internal disagreements and different thoughts should be expressed internally, there is no space for any public disagreement, disharmony, and disrespect. Public disagreement, disharmony, and disrespect, or perceptions that such exist, will weaken the faith and confidence our people have in our organization. Our organization, Umkhonto Wesizwe, must collectively resist the temptation of destructive conduct and behavior from amongst its cadres and members. We carry the obligation to defend our movement with everything we have, because the forces of reaction wish we should have never existed at all. The enemy forces are outside and not inside Umkhonto Wesizwe, and we should conduct thorough political education and guidance to demonstrate that the enemy forces is outside and not inside the movement. In line with enforcing discipline of the organization, the national officials, after receiving a report of the National Disciplinary Committee, resolved to expel or cancel the membership of 2 members of the organization. One of the members whose membership is cancelled used to serve as a deployee of Umkhonto Wesizwe in the National Council of Provinces in Cape Town, and the other member was deployed in the Provincial Legislature of Mpumalanga Province. These 2 expulsions are a demonstration that we do not and will not tiptoe on matters that relate to internal discipline. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the people of South Africa, will take this opportunity here in Johannesburg, in Sandton, to announce that as part of our programs for 2025, the Umkhonto Wesizwe will be hosting the inaugural President Jacob Zuma lecture that is going to be held here at the Sandton Convention Center on the 12th of April 2025. The 12th of April is the birth date of our President Jacob Zuma. The inaugural President Jacob Zuma lecture will be attended by dignitaries from many parts of the world and from the African continent. The inaugural President Jacob Zuma lecture will also be attended by guests representing royal houses, amakhosi and religious leaders, and business leaders who will contribute for the programs of the President, particularly in the education sector. We will, over the next few weeks, announce the name of the leader who will deliver the inaugural President Jacob Zuma lecture. The public lecture on President Jacob Zuma is an important lecture because we carry an obligation as Umkhonto Wesizwe to contest the public narrative that his political life and contributions in society represent wasted years. Our president remains the most important asset in the life of our organization, and we carry a revolutionary obligation to defend his politics, ideas, and vision. Despite the many lies and propaganda spread on President Jacob Zuma, he is the most accomplished head of state and president in terms of increasing life expectancy of ordinary people, building infrastructure, and positioning of South Africa in the global space. Our president is a revolutionary and a true servant of the people, and our articulations and programs as an organization will demonstrate this undeniable fact. The national officials of Umkhonto Wesizwe also took several decisions on the leadership question in relation to the National High Command and in relation to provinces as well. Provinces constitute an important component of the organizational structures and leadership in Umkhonto Wesizwe. We should state that after we had announced the additional members into the National High Command of Umkhonto Wesizwe, there was a legitimate and sensible outcry from people with disabilities on the non-inclusion of people with disabilities in the leadership structure, particularly the National High Command. We therefore announce, after resolution of the national officials, the appointment of Commander Dimakatso Litageng as a member of the National High Command. Commander Dimakatso Litageng is a seasoned activist for people with disabilities and has always been active in programs and activities of Umkhonto Wesizwe. Now, in terms of provinces, the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe, in terms of the deployment of National High Command members to provinces, the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe says that each member of the National High Command will be allocated a specific responsibility as an individual or in a committee and deployed to a province or region where they will perform tasks and functions specified by the National High Command. In line with this constitutional clause and obligation, we have resolved to deploy the following National High Command members to different provinces. In the province of Eastern Cape, it's the National High Command deployees, not the leadership of the provinces. In the province of the Eastern Cape, the National High Command deployees will be led by Advocate Dalimpofu, and also will include Lungelo Madlungozi, will include Patrice Choku, will include Serame Name Mohale, the head of political education. In the province of Free State, the deployees of the National High Command will be led by General Daisy Chilwane and will include Julian Singwane, will include Commander Mabato Mokause, will include Commander Nomusa Cecilia Mpochane. In the province of Limpopo, the deployees of the National High Command will be led by Commander Ndumiso Matlala, will include Mweti Bila, will include Zibulwane Ligege and Matilda Radebe. In the Gauteng province, the convener of deployees of the National High Command will be Luda Libelo, will include Sindisiwe Mthembu, will include Dimakatso Litaheng, will include Mandla Sidu. In the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the deployees of the National High Command will be led by Commander Wesizwe Makanya, will include Commander Jabu Khoza, Dr. Skumbuzo Mkhize, and Commander Fanuel Manano. In the province of Mpumalanga, the deployees of the National High Command will be led by Commander Sibusiso Hadebe, who is known as Comrade Lion Ibubesi, and then will include Commander Menzima Gubani, will include Abraham Monyela, will include Dumisele Ngumalu. In the Northern Cape, the deployees of the National High Command will be led by Dr. Sfiso Maseko, will include Commander Papitau, will include Commander Neville Mutlabakwe, and will include Commander Kate Mabizela. In the Northwest Province, the deployees of the National High Command will be led by General Prince Mukotedi, will include will include Mr. Richard Sileke, and will include Commander Puseletsos Kosana. The Western Cape Province, the convener of deployees will be Dr. Tantim Tanti, and then will include Irene Nomakule, and will also include Commander Daina Puli. The National High Command meeting that took place in November 2024 resolved that contrary to how we had constituted the committees of the National High Command, which previously were chaired by the national officials, were mandated as the national officials to recompose or reconstitute the national officials such that the national officials are not the chairpersons of the committees, so that they can function without the otherwise very busy members of the national officials. Now, the National Disciplinary Committee, as we had announced in the last press conference, is chaired by Advocate Dalimpofu. It includes Dr. Ndiboniswani Tuzumba. It includes General Nompumulelo Desi Chilwane. It includes Bongani Baloi. It includes Commander Daina Mutau, Commander Matilda Radebe. The Constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe says that there must be other members who are not in the National High Command who must form part of the National Disciplinary Committee. And these will be Mr. Mafika Sihlali, Ms. Brenda Waddle, Ms. Tina Mpumlwane, Advocate Mpati Kofali Bakeng, and Advocate Butsilo Mukwena. And in terms of the National Disciplinary Committee of Appeal, the Deputy President, Dr. John Mandlakaise Hlope, will chair the National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals, and he continues to play the role of leading the legal matters of the organization. The Communications Subcommittee of Umkhonto Wesizwe will be chaired by Luda Libelo, will include Mweti Grace Bila, Wesizwe Makanya, Mabato Mokause, Lungelo Madlingozi, and Tlamulo Ndlela. The Safety and Security Committee of Umkhonto Wesizwe will be chaired by Comrade Lion Zibusiso Hadebe, will include Julian Singwane, Sindim Tembu, Fanuel Manana, Ndumiso Matlala, and Daina Mutawa. The Economic Transformation Subcommittee of Umkhonto Wesizwe will be chaired by Dr. Tantim Tanti, when will include Richard Sileke, Brian Mulife, Siyabonga Gama, Laki Muntana, Mweti Bila, Adil Chabeling, and Tsepo Mahlangu. The Social Transformation Subcommittee of Umkhonto Wesizwe will be chaired by Dr. Sfiso Maseko, will include Jabulani Nzimande, Papi Tau, Mandla Sidu, Ndibuniswani Tujumba, Muzin Chingila, and Piki Vilagazi. The International Relations Subcommittee of Umkhonto Wesizwe is chaired by the head of presidency, Makasela Mzobe. It includes Commander Des van Rooyen, Kate Mabizela, Dr. Skumbuzo Mkize, Duduzile Zuma, Andile Mngutama, and Wesley Douglas. The Governance Subcommittee of Umkhonto Wesizwe is chaired by the Chief Whip, Mzwanele Mani, and will include the National Organizer, Commander Joe Ndlela. Will also include Irene Kruvile Namachule, Mabato Mokause, Leon Banjwa, Bongani Baloyi, Dzibulwani Ligege, Abraham Munyela, and all party leaders and chief whips of the provincial legislatures of Umkhonto Wesizwe. And then the finance subcommittee of Umkhonto Wesizwe is going to be chaired by Commander Brian Mulife. And it will include the Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General, National Organizer, Tabsile Kumalo, the convener of the Women and Youth League, which are Ms. Nolutando Shozi and Keniso Tibane, respectively. And then Ms. Nomu Sampochane, Richard Sileke, Prince Mukotedi, and all the provincial fundraisers. And in relation to issues that have to be attended to in all the provinces, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we say that as officials that the province of KwaZulu-Natal should organize an induction workshop for all the appointed regional structures, and the national officials will approve the soon-to-be identified sub-regional leaders for all the 48 sub-regions, because we've got 44 municipalities in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but eThekwini is going to be subdivided into 4 sub-regions with its own sub-regional leadership as recommended by the regional detachment of eThekwini. Mpumalanga has had difficulties of parallel structures, and the national officials have resolved that all the national officials will visit the 3 regions of Mpumalanga to listen to the membership of Umkhonto Wesizwe, interact with the provincial detachment, and come out of the province with single leadership and affirmed leadership that has been appointed to say that this then becomes the program of action on how we collectively move forward. The era of fragmentation in Mpumalanga should and will come to an end. In Limpopo province, the national officials noted the objections that were lodged by the former interim leadership structures of Limpopo province, and has resolved that we should send a delegation led by the national chairperson, which will include the national organizer and the head of presidency and the national high command deployees to Limpopo to go and listen to the objections that were lodged on the appointed leadership of Limpopo province. And that will be done as soon as possible. In relation to the Northern Cape, the Deputy Secretary General has been mandated to work with the National High Command deployees to the province of the Northern Cape to immediately start the process of consultations and recommend ultimately the leadership of Northern Cape. You will remember that in the previous press conference we had said we are not going to appoint the leadership of Northern Cape this year, but we think that now the material conditions have matured enough to could appoint and designate a leadership in the Northern Cape province. And in terms of Gauteng province, the national officials in the secretariat are in the process of processing the recommended additional members to the provincial detachment and the top 8 of all the regional detachments of the 5 regions of City being West Rand, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and Tshwane, and will make an approval, conduct induction of all those that have been identified, and then make an announcement before the end of February 2025, which might be even as soon as tomorrow. In relation to the Northwest Province, the national officials have resolved to appoint the top 8 of the Northwest Province. The convener of the Northwest Province, I will ask him to stand up. Everyone who is ready now will just stand up so that we can know. The convener of the Northwest Province is Commander Alfred Mutsi. Is there. And then the deputy convener is Commander Tebuho Ramashilabela. He's wearing black. And then the coordinator is Commander Bosali Dwaba. And then the deputy coordinator is Commander Thabo Mbiko. The organizer is Commander Mpho Trekere Mutlakoleng. The deputy organizer is Commander Lerato Likabe. At the back there. The fundraiser is Commander Mpho Babes Matuta. The deputy fundraiser is Commander Josiah Big John Bele. And in relation to the province of the Free State, we have resolved to appoint the leadership of the Free State province. The convener is Commander Sandile Mabiza from Lejweleputu. And the deputy convener is Commander Simon Mitsing Mudise. And the coordinator is Commander Vusi Chabalala. The deputy coordinator is Commander Manana Sichoro. The provincial organizer is Commander Mapaseka Mutibi. The deputy organizer is Commander Banks Shabangu. And then the fundraiser is Commander Velem Sikekete. And then the deputy fundraiser is Dr. Ntabising Muchware at the back there. And we have identified one member of the additionals in relation to the Free State, who is Leslie Slepe. Now, in relation to Umkhonto Wesizwe, inter-religious movement. So in Umkhonto Wesizwe, there were 3 organizations which were organizing the interfaith community, church leaders or leaders from different religious communities, traditional healers. So in the past, we used to have 3 organizations. One was called the South African Interfaith Religious Council. The other one was called the MK Religious Desk. The other one was called MK Faith-Based Organizations. So after consistent deliberations and guidance from the national officials of Umkhonto Wesizwe, the 3 organizations have now agreed to merge into one organization, which is called Umkhonto Wesizwe Inter-Religious Movement, the MKIRM. Umkhonto Wesizwe Interfaith Religious Movement. It is comprised of all religious leaders, traditional healers from different provinces, sub-regions. It's one of the most important sectors in the life of Umkhonto Wesizwe. The leadership of Umkhonto Wesizwe will be engaging with the MKIRM to identify the national leadership of Umkhonto Wesizwe interreligious movement. There's already an identification of the date of the 2nd of March, which is a Sunday, to finalize the internal documents of Umkhonto Wesizwe interreligious movement, interfaith religious movement, to then finalize its internal documents and arrangements, and then we will guide in that meeting as to what becomes the approach to the leadership question. And in terms of the MK students movement, the national officials have mandated the MK Youth League leadership to identify students, activists who are full-time based in universities of technology, and TVET colleges, and then constitute a national task team and provincial task teams that are going to lead the MK students movement. That task team will be tasked with developing the internal documents of Umkhonto Wesizwe students movement, which will exclusively be organizing Umkhonto Wesizwe supporters and members at post-secondary level education in terms of what is required. The Umkhonto Wesizwe Women's League and Umkhonto Wesizwe Youth League have presented base documents. The constitutions of both organizations are in place. But because the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe says that these two leagues are relatively autonomous, we're going to give them an opportunity today to speak as to what are the immediate issues that they are dealing with. Now, in conclusion, Umkhonto Wesizwe is entering and is in a very important and critical phase of its growth and development. The phase that the organization is in requires maximum discipline and composure from amongst its leaders and members. Members will always take tune from the leadership, and if we show signs of ill discipline and divisions, the membership will be ill disciplined and divided. Umkhonto Wesizwe is at the forefront of unifying Indlu Emnyama, and such will only happen when the whole of society and our people unite behind our movement. If we do not show any signs of unity, the organization will dwindle into insignificance. Thank you very much, Africa Mayabuya. Mandla. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I'll be calling in the convener of the Women's League, and then she'll be followed by the convener of the Youth League, and then from there we'll then allow for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Luther. Thank you, Secretary General of Umkhonto Wesizwe. Thank you to the national officials, National High Command. Ooh. Is that better? Thank you. National officials, the National High Command, the leadership in the provinces, the Youth League, and the Women's League leadership that is amongst us here, respectable members of Umkhonto Wesizwe, all protocols observed. Good afternoon. Today marks a significant milestone for Umkhonto Wesizwe Women's League as we move forward in fulfilling our mandate to mobilize, to organize, and empower women across South Africa. Following the restructuring announcement made by the Secretary General of the MK Party, Comrade Floyd Shivambu, on the 22nd of January 2024, the MK Women's League has been tasked with rebuilding its organizational structures, expanding our grassroots and our grassroots reach, rather, and addressing the socio-economic challenges affecting women in South Africa. And I think that's a huge task. It is covered in the one important thing that we have to do, which is to unite women inside Umkhonto Wesizwe Women's League. In alignment with this mandate, the national leadership of the Women's League has embarked on a deliberate and strategic effort to ensure that the League operates effectively, inclusively, which is most important, and with the necessary organizational stability. My formal appointment as the national convener of the Women's League and Comrade Lindiwe Mtshali as national coordinator, she's sitting in front here, have laid the foundation for the effective functioning of the League. We recognize that strong leadership is critical for the success of our movement. And as such, the Women's League is committed to ensuring that women within the movement are positioned to lead, shape policy, and drive transformation in the party and the society at large. Furthermore, the MK Women's League has developed a draft constitution, and I think the Secretary General was talking about that earlier. It's at draft stages. That aligns with Umkhonto Wesizwe constitution because we are a relatively autonomous body, ensuring that the League functions with clear governance structures, defined leadership roles, and accountability mechanisms. As part of this process, the Women's League has engaged with provincial detachments and the National High Command to solidify leadership structures at the provincial level, ensuring that we are fully capacitated to lead on the ground. To drive our mission forward, the MK Party Women's League National Women's Detachment has recommended the following leadership for the Gauteng Women's League Provincial Detachment. And if it's possible, may I ask that they come forward so you can see them. Musa Dube, they all call her Dr. Nozi, is going to take the position of the convener of women in the province of Gauteng. Lebo Mkhize, coordinator, if you can follow, please. Ntomfuthi Vilakazi will take on the position of the organizer, and Agnes Mnomia, bambiza ngokuthi umashwabada, she will take the position of the fundraiser. Thank you very much, ladies. If you can just stand here so they can see you. These initial appointments are critical in allowing us to expand our leadership footprint into the rest of the country as quickly as possible. The following complement to the establishment of structures is extensively engaged by the relevant leadership structures. We will soon add and appoint two MK Women's League national two MK Women's League national positions, that of the organizer and the fundraiser, very soon. 4 MK Women's League provincial detachments, which will be the deputy convener, the deputy coordinator, deputy organizer, deputy fundraiser, and additional members to the team that you are seeing in front of you. Announcements shall be made accordingly in order for constituencies to get in touch with their leaders and participate fully in all the women revolutionary programs. Can I just take a sip of water? This is just the beginning. We are moving with speed because the work cannot wait. We call upon women across South Africa to join MK Party Women's League, to stand up, to be counted, and become active participants in revolutionary movement. From those who took the first step on the 16th of December 2024, to every woman across South Africa, we say, this is your movement. Whether you are young or old, in the workplace, in the communities, in leadership, or in grassroots organizing, a single mother, a caregiver, or a woman living with disabilities, there is a place for you in this league. This is not a league of exclusion. And I think it's important that we state that, but it's of participation, recognition, and real impact. We will continue to engage women from all walks of life, expand our reach, and ensure that the voice of women is a voice of power, influence, and unwavering commitment to the cause of women in South Africa. Viva Women's League, viva. Viva. Amandla. Sihole Msholozi, sihole. Thank you.
Kwaza Umkhonto, kwaza. Greetings to the national officials. Greetings to the members of the MK Party. Greetings to the viewers at home and young people at large across the country. My name is Qiniso Cebane, currently serving as the convener of the MK Youth League. Comrades, I'll be reading the statement of the MK Youth League National Detachment. Read as follows. Comrades, commanders, esteemed media, and supporters of Umkhonto Wesizwe Party all over South Africa, on behalf of the MK Youth League, I stand at this pivotal moment in our revolutionary journey as we unveil our newly appointed provincial detachment. A powerful symbol of our unwavering commitment to achieving justice, quality, and freedom for our youth. Guided by the wisdom of Frantz Fanon, we recognize that the youth are the vanguard of the revolution change, not just future leaders. Our mission is to dismantle systemic inequalities, unemployment, marginalization, especially among our youth. We understand, as Amilcar Cabral taught, that our struggle is for tangible progress, thus access to better lives, opportunities, peace, and we will not rest until the youth are freed from the chains of poverty, drugs abuse, teenage pregnancy, hopelessness, landlessness. Comrades, for as long as these issues persist, our fight remains unresolved. In the heat of South Africa, young people face overwhelming challenges. Research from Statistics South Africa and the Optima study tell a grim tale that it is nearly 2/3 of the youth, almost 5 million of them, are unemployed, leaving many vulnerable to crime, while around 62% of the children living in multi-dismental poverty. Shockingly, 35.4% of children have experienced sexual abuse, and around 12.2% have suffered neglect, with 29% resorting to drinking and other issues like teenage pregnancies. Substance abuse and absence of fathers planning the township hope seems distant. For these young people, the consequences are dire. unemployment chips away at their happiness and pride, often leading to depression, crime, and those facing violence carry deep scars, both physical and mental, which hinder their ability to succeed. Meanwhile, challenges such as teenage pregnancy, hopelessness threaten their future, making it harder for the nation to achieve equality, justice. But this is not just a crisis, it is a call to action. With the new leadership now appointed in the provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng, young leaders of the Umkhonto Wesizwe party are taking on critical task of confronting these issues. Their work will focus on mobilizing communities, empowering youth with education, opportunities, safeguard children, and leading the fight for systematic change. As the country faces these challenges head on, the future will depend on these new leaders' resilience and dedication to transforming the lives of South African youth. Determined to transform these bleak challenges into opportunities for hope, and these leaders vow to build a future where every young South African could reclaim their dignity and strive for equality. These challenges have severe consequences. Unemployment chips away at self-esteem of our youth, diminishes hope, often leads to depression and increase in criminal activities. The violence and abuse inflicted on our young people leave deep physical and emotional scars, severely hindering their educational achievements, overall development, the secure of teenage pregnancy, and perceive hopelessness further. The state feels into the potential, threatening the very foundation of our national pursuit of equality and justice. Yet, in the midst of this adversity, there is a clarion call to action with the appointment of new leadership in provinces such as KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Gauteng, with other provinces to follow soon. Our young leaders are poised to confront these challenges head on. The mandate is to mobilize communities, empower youth with success, to quality education, economic opportunities, safeguard our children, and lead the fight for systematic change. These dedicated leaders have vowed to transform our nation's bleak challenges into opportunities for hope and renewal. As the genuine leaders of the youth of South Africa, we stand resolute in our determination to break the chains of poverty. Drug abuse, teenage pregnancy, hopelessness, and evolutionary struggle will continue unabated until every young South African can reclaim their dignity and thrive in a society that truly upholds justice and equality. On behalf of the National Youth Detachment, we therefore announce the appointment of the following leaders who will lead in the respective provinces. We will start with KwaZulu-Natal. We know they are not here in Mpumalanga and Limpopo, but Gauteng is here present. And also, as young people, will be going into these provinces and launching these structures. We'll start with KZN. The convener for KZN is Comrade Michelle Whittle from eThekwini region. The deputy convener is Thembile Mpumelelo Mfeka from King Cetshwayo. The coordinator is Lungisani Memela from Moses Mapita region. The deputy coordinator is Minenhle Ngobese from Umzinyati. The mobilizer is Sean Msimang from Zululand. And the fundraiser is Bongukuphila Tebogo Madlala from Lower Side Coast. From Limpopo, we have Tlavugo Malulega as convener, Tabo Jack as deputy convener, Ashley Masoneng as coordinator, Poppy Malete as coordinator, Promise Moleya as mobilizer, Vuchila Malulega as fundraiser. The provincial detachment is led by Pat Malaza as convener, Nonhlanhla Umkhonto as deputy convener, Angel Tabete as coordinator, Peace Makanya as deputy coordinator, Teven Sibuya as mobilizer, Kensani Sitole as fundraiser. Now we'll be calling the Gauteng provincial detachment. I'll also request these leaders to please stand here in the front so they will be known by our leaders. Led by Unamandla Ketelana as convener. The deputy convener is Sinomusa Dlondlo. The coordinator is Sipiwe Maseko. The deputy coordinator is Junior Shilulubani. Forgive me, comrades. The mobilizer is Katleho Bodibe. The fundraiser is Azanya Hwedi. And with Gauteng, we added 2 additionals. Matladi Lehodi and we have Zipozonke Dube. In conclusion, as we stand, this is the critical juncture. The appointment of our new provincial detachment is both an affirmation of our commitment and strategic move to empower our future. Let this announcement make the beginning of a resolute campaign, a campaign where the youth of South Africa rise, united and empowered to build a nation free from the chains of unemployment, abuse, marginalization. I Knutsobane with my coordinator, Katego Mkabela. Kwaza Umkhonto kwaza.
Thank you very much for the presentation from both the convener of the Women's League and the one of the Youth League. And as I stated, that we'll then be taking questions from our beloved media colleagues. And I'm acknowledging the national spokesperson by the corner there, Comrade Ntlamolo, we all know him. So colleagues, without any waste of time, we will then take questions. You'll introduce yourself, and after introducing yourself, you also explain where you're from and you're asking questions. And then we'll take at least 5 questions. I'll be directed by the leadership if we can take more than that, and they'll be responded to, and then we'll take another set of questions. I would have loved Comrade Lamulo to come to the front if there is a chair here. Okay, we're taking questions. Question number 1.
My name is Yamtanda Kapa from News 24.
Yes.
I have 2 questions, really. The first one would be to the convener of the Women's League. Could you please just explain what makes this structure different from any other Women's League structure? And then to the SG, last week we saw a lot of discourse around, and interestingly you mentioned ill discipline in your address. We saw profanities coming from Ms. Duduzuma. Could you please enlighten us what's happened since? Have you spoken to her? Have you ironed out issues? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second question.
It's
by show of-
Natasha Piri here, sorry, from the SABC.
Yes, can come in.
Just as a follow-up to Siam Tanda's question in regards to Duduzile Zuma, is there any love lost between you and the SG? Oh, sorry, SG, you and her. Did she also go through a disciplinary hearing, just for clarity, right? Also, in relation to this new clause that your MK party constitution bars public representatives from seeking meetings with President Zuma, what actually prompted this new clause in the Constitution. Furthermore, you mentioned the suspension or expulsion of those two MK members, one from the NCOP and the member of the provincial legislature in Mpumalanga. Can you please name them? Because you didn't name them. And then my last question. We are doing a feature on education. It's been, this year marks 10 years since the Fees Must Fall movement. Now, the president of the party is seen as an architect, of free education. I just want you to weigh in, Mr. Shibambu, over the past 10 years in regards to the higher education sector. What are the flaws? What are the positives, the advantages or disadvantages of that? Thank you, and apologies for the many questions.
That's okay. Thank you very much. The third hand. Please raise your hand. Let me see the hand. And you must stand up when you raise the hand. Yes, proceed that.
Good afternoon, Sandile Rashumela from the Community Newsroom under Joburg News. I've got two questions in Women's League. My first question will be, what does the MK Party Women's League collaborate with other women's group or in the organization to advance shared goals? My second question will be, how does the MK Party Women's League contribute to policymaking and the advancements of women's rights in this country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And number 4. Yes, you can come.
Thank you very much. My name is Lungam Zangwe. I'm from the Mail and Guardian. Just to the Secretary General. Secretary, I want to follow up on Siam Tanda's question in regards to Ututu. Is there fear of maybe charging or taking it to the disciplinary hearing? And if there's not, why has that not happened? And also just want to hear on the issue of Mzwanele Manyi and the Deputy President to say, is it true that the speech that was given to the Deputy President was not sanctioned by the former President? And if it's true, the two, Tutuzile and Mzwanela, seem to be very close to President Zuma, but this is high ill discipline, and you're an organization that pride yourself in discipline. Why has anything not been done to them, or why has there been any suspension or anything of that nature? Thank you very much.
Okay, the last hand for this round. The mic here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Disetso from Pantastic in the Media House. I have a question for MKP. Considering the swift growth of the MK party, why are these leadership detachment structures being announced separately rather than all at once? And what are the prospects for certain growth alongside the plans for 2026? How can this growth in other provinces which have not announced, how can this inspire growth, in other provinces which have not announced detachment? Thank you so much.
Maybe let me take you, because I know there is a mixture of questions with that. So you can go. It'll be the last one. Okay, let me just recognize that. Let me see the other hands. I see there is. Oh, you're talking about me. All right. I thought. Okay, you can go, and then you'll be the last round.
Good afternoon. Tabiso Koba from Eyewitness News. I think I've been covered by my colleagues, so I won't add on those questions. But I do want to ask about the issue of Mpumalanga. We saw the convener, Wesizwe Mkhwebane, and Mary Party hosting 2 rallies. I just want to know, considering that, I do know obviously the official position with regarding Mkhwebane, but I do want to know, considering that the rallies of Umeri Party was attended by a considerable number of MK supporters, in what capacity does the MK Party recognize Umeri Party? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'll allow the SG to... Sorry? Oh, the DSG. Oh, all right. I'll allow the DSG, then we'll follow.
Thank you very much, Comrade Luther. Greetings to the media house, the members of Umkhonto Wesizwe, the leadership of Umkhonto Wesizwe, national and provincial, as well as regional. Would like to acknowledge the presence of the Women's League convener and coordinator, as well as the Youth League national convener and coordinator. I would like to first respond on the question on the misconduct that was conducted. That question was asked by Siamtanda Kaba. It relates to the misconduct or ill discipline that was conducted by Duduzile Zuma. I will respond to that question, couple it with the one that had asked whether the disciplinary processes has been taken or the leadership is afraid of instituting the disciplinary processes. We held the national officials meeting last week on Wednesday, the 19th of February 2025. The national officials meeting is constituted by the national officials, which includes the Commander General, who is the president of Umkhonto Wesizwe. The national officials deliberated intensively on the same matter, which went viral on media. In their deliberations, the president's wisdom and guidance was that everyone, every member that belongs under Umkhonto Wesizwe should abide by the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe, the code of conduct of Umkhonto Wesizwe. Should anyone, any member of Umkhonto Wesizwe transgresses, meaning that should any person behaves out of the constitution stipulations, that person should be subjected to the disciplinary processes. It is therefore my submission that we did take into cognizance the guide of the president, and we have since started to follow the stipulations of the constitution, which guides clearly that that section 6 of our constitution, it clearly guides that should a member of Umkhonto Wesizwe behaves or misconduct, that person should be subjected to the code of conduct of Umkhonto Wesizwe. And the code of conduct clearly outlines the transgressions, and those transgressions are outlined and the implications thereof. That should you do this, the implication should be this. And it also guides that if there is any person that has ill behaved or that has acted out of the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe, the process to follow is that a report of the incident of misconduct or misbehavior or ill discipline, a comprehensive report which indicates that this person on this day at this time did this, and that report and the misconduct must be clearly outspelled, that this is the misconduct that that particular person has done. And that report must be submitted to the Office of the Secretary General for processing and submission, process to submit to the National Prosecutor of Umkhonto Wesizwe. Then the National Prosecutor of Umkhonto Wesizwe processes the report as received from the Secretary General's office. So in the instance of Dudu Zilezuma Sambudla, I would like to clearly indicate that disciplinary processes, internal disciplinary processes are in progress. That is the response in respect of the question regarding Duduzile. The next question was on the expulsion. The two members that has been mentioned that has been a decision has been taken to terminate their membership of Umkhonto Wesizwe. We are not in a position to tell the names, mention the names, because they are still a disciplinary processes or the processes that are beyond appeal processes, disciplinary processes that are beyond the process itself of expulsion, which is the appeal processes. So we cannot then divulge their names in this briefing. Thank you very much for now, Comrade Luther. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the response. The SG will come and give other responses, and the convener of the Women's League will follow immediately after.
That's right. No, thank you very much, DSG, and thanks for all the questions that we raised here. The DSG was able to clarify some of the issues that were raised. There is a question on why do we announce the leadership structures separately? Why can't we do it all at once? So prior to the national officials identifying and processing and thereafter appointing leadership, there's a very intense organic process that involves the lower structures of the organization, assessment of the work done before, but also assessment of the different capacities of the individuals that get to be identified. There's a broad criteria that we have that takes into consideration the issue of gender balance, geographic spread, skills, also the ability to lead politically in terms of the responsibilities that are expected. So there's a very intense process which we subject the leadership selection process prior to us announcing. And we do so because we do not want to rush into appointment of structures which we have not satisfied ourselves that these are capable structures. And remember that the mandate that these structures that we're putting in place, it's not temporary structures. These are detachments that are going to lead Umkhonto Wesizwe and regional, provincial level to the victory in the 2026 local government elections, but also to 2029 general elections. So that process can be done in a speedy, haphazard way, in a manner that is expected. So we engage in thorough process of how we identify leadership. We're saying earlier to the leadership that is designated for Northwest and Free State Province that despite our commitment that they are mandated to lead the program towards 2026 and 2029, if there is internal divisions amongst them, we're going to discontinue such a structure. If there is infights and factionalism and all of these things, we're going to have to discontinue that structure or isolate the people who are involved in factionalism. If there's one thing we're going to decisively nip in the bud, it's factionalism and gatekeeping. Those are the demons that we're not going to tolerate in Umkhonto Wesizwe, and will deal with much more decisively without any fear, without any tiptoeing around anyone in terms of how such is handled. Now, can I have the copies of the constitutions there? On the 26th of September, we adopted the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe, 26 September 2026. So we've got the different versions in all languages. So in the Zulu version says, Umthetho Sisekelo weqembu lomkhonto wesizwe, adopted on the 26th of September 2024. And at the same meeting, we adopted the code of conduct. We also adopted something we call the minimum standards, guidelines, and code of conduct for all public representatives. Since the adoption of the Constitution, the minimum standards, and the code of conduct, there has never been an amendment of the MK Constitution. So in the minimum standards, there is a clause which is standard for all organizations that are self-respecting, that on issues that relate to MK or governance, if you are deployed in the legislature, if you are deployed in National Assembly or National Council of Provinces, if there's an issue that you want to raise before you reach the president, please raise that issue in the internal structures. Raise it in the caucus. If the caucus does not give you a hearing, raise it with the officials in the province where you come from. If it's not handled properly, then approach the other officials at national level. Instead of you taking a bus from Limpopo and you go to Kwadakwat News to want to meet the president about an issue which, if you had raised with the leadership of the province, it could have been resolved. And that is the character of all self-respecting organizations, that let's have Umkhonto Wesizwe as an organization that exists and is able to deal with all its issues everywhere it finds itself. So the culture or subculture, sometimes it's done with good intentions, but sometimes it's also done with bad intentions, where people say, no, we're just visiting the president, we just want to say thank you to the president, we're just going to introduce ourselves. And when they are there, they are talking about internal dynamics and politics of Umkhonto Wesizwe. And the leadership that they are talking about or complaining about or raising concerns about is not immediately there. And the president does not close his doors. All of us know, all of you know as members of Umkhonto Wesizwe, that the president welcomes everyone who comes to him. Like literally everyone. If you go to Nkandla, you go to wherever he will be, he is open to everyone. But we are then saying that as a matter of proper record and proper conduct of the organization, if you want to raise organizational issues or issues that relate to governance, raise it in the relevant structures instead of you going to raise it there. Because one issue which we have to deal with, it's a situation where even when the comrades who go to visit the president have not raised any issue with him, they will ask for a photo with the president. And then when they go back to the ground and they go back to the legislature, they harass people with that photo. That I was with the president here, the president said, Ubaba Ute. That is what we are dealing with much more decisively, to protect the character of the organization, which is able to deal with its own issues. There are disciplinary issues that we have taken in relation to Mpumalanga. We've mentioned that, but the DSG is correct that because those that have been subjected to the disciplinary process or decisions have been taken against them still have the leeway or the permissibility to appeal. We can't be publicizing their names. It will not be fair on them. Because everywhere they go, they're going to be treated that this is an expelled member, this is an expelled member. We just are explaining the simple fact that we have taken a decision to expel members. They must exhaust internal process. And once they're out of the organization, we will explain even the offenses that they committed. There's a challenge in Mpumalanga, objectively so. And we have met with the leadership that is led by the convener of Mpumalanga, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. The convener of Mpumalanga is Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, as per the decision of the national officials of the National High Command of the President. So that is the convener of Mpumalanga. We are aware that there are people who are not pleased with the composition of the leadership in Mpumalanga. Such is the case as well in Limpopo. That is why we gave an indication here that the leadership, the national officials will go to the province to listen to each and every member of Umkhonto Wesizwe as to what are the basis of their concerns so that we can resolve all these issues and then we end up with one organization. We will not close our eyes and ears whenever concerns are raised in the organization, even if we suspect that some of the issues that are raised border on opportunism. We will always go and listen to all members of Umkhonto Wesizwe so that we produce one organization and not multiple organizations. But also we want to caution the comrades that are raising legitimate concerns about the leadership that don't, in the process of raising concerns, find yourself on the other side of the constitution and violating it. There is no one who is closed out. When you are not appointed as leadership, don't say that I am the leader, I will not change. There is no leadership structure in Umkhonto Wesizwe which was appointed without the concurrence of the president. All the leadership structures, including the ones we're announcing here of the leagues and the fraternal organizations, the president was in those meetings, and we go name by name so that we collectively take responsibility. To now want to attribute the leadership outcomes and collectives to one leader of Umkhonto Wesizwe is opportunism, is problematic. But also, if you want to bring information which perhaps the entire leadership collective was not aware of when it was making such an appointment, do so in a disciplined way. Do so in a disciplined manner. Don't go and organize parallel programs and want to demonstrate that you are more relevant than the leadership that has been identified. We know as the collective as to what we're doing in all the provinces and the regions. We're not making mistakes, but if there are issues that were beyond our comprehension, when we make appointments, bring to our attention, we listen to you. Hence, the national chairperson will be going to Limpopo with the national organizer and the head of presidency to listen to the concerns that are raised there. In Mpumalanga, the national officials will be going to listen to whoever is raising a concern. We did say this to the detachment, the top 8, the convener, Advocate Mkhwebane, the deputy convener is Masumbuka, the coordinator is Mkhatshwa, and all the leaders that have been appointed. Those are leaders in Mpumalanga. Even when we go to have consultations in Mpumalanga, we take that decision stands, but we are willing to listen to other perspectives and inputs from members so that ultimately we all get to own up to this. So, in the democratic centralism that is outlined in the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe says that there will be democratic consultations before decisions are taken. That is what the constitution of Umkhonto Wesizwe says. That there will be democratic consultations and engagements before decisions are taken. But once decisions have been taken, the right to disagree, the right to differ dwindles into insignificance. It doesn't matter anymore. We can't consult forever. At some stage, we must have to take decisions in terms of how we move forward. The issue that is raised by Natasha from SABC on free education. It's a historical fact that will go into proper historical context that when there was Feast Must Fall movement, Bongikosi Kanyile is here, he was part of the Feast Must Fall movement. First, the reaction of government under President Zuma was to put in place a commission of inquiry to investigate methods of how we can introduce, or South Africa can introduce fee-free education at higher education level. And that commission did not recommend that there must be fee-free education at higher education level. It recommended some mixed masala of combinations of student loans and banks involvement and all of those things there. But President Zuma rejected that report and announced that there must be free quality education for all at higher education level. That was the decision that was taken. And of course, after he left office, those who came after him frustrated the full rollout of free education for all at post-secondary level. But politically, President Zuma had given a directive in terms of introduction of free education for all. And that is on record. And by the way, if you were to go and check the many articulations which even the sponsored disruptions which some of us were associated with in the past, even the sponsored, you must go and listen to all his interventions on the land question. In Parliament, he emphatically said that why is it that there's a debate amongst black political parties on the expropriation of land without compensation? But blinded by whatever issue, there was no follow-up on that to the fullest. And the caucus of the ruling party then, the majority party, frustrated such a realization. There was consensus, I know this because we're at the forefront of that before. There was consensus on amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution because President Zuma had given a clear indication that that should be the case. But when political power shifted hands to the one who is in office now, such was frustrated to the extent that the 2/3 that existed between the former liberation movement and the organization that characterizes itself as an economic emancipation movement was no longer existing. And the opportunity was lost in terms of the politics of real transformation in South Africa. The immediate issues that confront higher education in South Africa is an obvious historical issue of one, the spaces that are available for first-year uptake are far much lesser than the number of students that are produced at secondary levels. So the entire system of matriculants and those who drop out at grade 10 and 11 at any given point exceeds 1 million. But if you were to go and quantify just how many spaces are available in universities of technology, and TVET colleges, it's far much lesser. So you end up having a category which Statistics South Africa always categorizes as the not in employment and not in educational training institutions. It's a very huge number of the unemployed that constitute a huge number of unemployed poor South Africans, young South Africans who do not have access to education, do not have access to any job in terms of how such is constructed. So there has to be, yes, qualitative expansion of the higher education sector, but there must be quantitative expansion of the higher education sector. That is one of the most important issues that Wits University, University of Pretoria, University of Johannesburg, University of Cape Town, University of Western Cape, University of Venda, University of Limpopo, all campuses, Tshwane University of Technology, all of these universities must be given a political directive also coupled with funding to expand the number of people that they must take into education and training on a constant basis. We need to train as many people as possible in whatever skill so that when we create industry, we're able to absorb them into quality sustainable jobs. The other issue which is long overdue is the issue of the historic debt So we said, as part of the contributions in the State of Nation address, that Umkhonto Wesizwe will initiate or support all legislation that seeks to cancel historical debts of students. How do you deny someone a paper that says you have got a degree or a diploma or a certificate because they owe you money that they cannot pay you? It's not that they are just defying to pay you as a university. They don't have the money. You have got means as government to establish that these people do not have money. They've been here, and some of the amounts which universities are holding certificates for, it's far much lesser amounts. You find someone is only owing a university 2,500, 5,000 rand, and then they hold the whole degree of a person because you owe a university 5,000 rand. Where is the political morality? Where is the political consciousness and conscience to just let go? Let's give students their degrees. Everyone who has passed must be given their degrees. We can find a way of how do they repay it if it's needed. There's not even a need, because there is no way that you can continue to hound the people of who are owing universities on the basis that they must pay you. They can't pay you. They don't have the money. They've demonstrated that they do not have the money. So that is an issue that must be attended to in terms of how we deal with these issues. I think the DSG has dealt with the issues of disciplinary issues and everything else. But now myself, as a Secretary General, as a person, I don't get offended by anything. I know that leadership responsibility will always come with all sorts of accusations and all sorts of insults, sometimes of unfair judgments or gauge. And I took this responsibility fully aware that such will be part of the responsibilities that were given. There are so many things that are said, and we just watch, and of course, I also don't respond to things that are said on social media. There are so many obvious lies that are told about us, but we just leave it because lies will always expose themselves in terms of how we characterize these issues. So I personally don't get offended by anyone, and I don't hold any grudges against anyone. Like, MK is a very huge movement. It's attracting leaders from different formations. There are people whom we could have had differences with before, but when they come to Umkhonto Wesizwe and then they need to be guided, we have to guide all of them objectively and fairly. That is what leadership responsibilities require of us, an obligation. And that is what, we must say this, that is what we learned from President Zuma. Some of us historically said all sorts of things about President Zuma, but he embraces us and even gives us very serious responsibilities with full confidence. So who would we be representing if we are leading Umkhonto Wesizwe and then we hold grudges and then want to fight people? Which organization are we leading if our character is to be insulting people and insulting back? Where have you seen President Zuma insult anyone? Where have you seen President Zuma denigrate anyone? Nowhere. But you can go and check. There's so many things that were said about him, including someone who was gossiping somewhere. We don't know whether that is true. Someone was saying that when President Zuma was 17 years old, he was possibly a collaborator. And these are certified collaborators who, even when they were leading the country, you could see by their direction, their association with the imperialist and colonialist West, that they are representing the interest of the establishment. And then they tend that, no, when 70 years ago or 68 years ago, when you were 17 years old, how did you get arrested? The measure of President Zuma must be gauged about what he gets to contribute now, what he contributed He has never collaborated with the establishment domestically and globally. That is why when he was head of state and president, he got to take South Africa to join an organization which was called BRIC. It became BRICS, associated with the global south and progressive countries in the world. And that is the legacy that we're going to defend and will continue to defend as Umkhonto Wesizwe. My boy Africa.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Commander Shivambu. I'm not going to give the members of the media some of these intelligent responses to questions, because I think for us as women also is about really creating our own space and being ourselves and not really trying to be anyone. And the first question that came is from a female that is in the media space with a clear understanding of how difficult it is for women in these spaces. And the question was, what is different about the Women's League in Umkhonto Wesizwe? And I think one of the first things that you can look at is how different this table looks today than it has ever been, maybe. And us being a 1 year old and a few months old, I think it is quite important. It communicates a message that there must be change, that women have got to be seen in these spaces of leadership. And I think that's something that you should look at and congratulate us on it. And we've said that this is just the start. We have showed only 4 of the leaders in Gauteng detachment that have been announced. And we said that there's going to be more. But when we talk about why this is important, we can never get enough of these organizations that look after the interests of women. Women are at the forefront of placing political parties and leaders where they are in this country, but we hardly see them really coming up in positions of power and being able to really develop policies that will position women better in this country. And for us as Umkhonto Wesizwe, it's one of the important things that we wanted to correct. Of course, one of the other challenges is that, and most of you have called us a stokvel, was to create solid structures. And that is what is different about this. It's about creating a solid structure for the Women's League that will actually represent the party and South Africa at large. So no intelligent conversations, but really practical things that we have to do. And the second question that came, I don't know if I will remember all of them. Somebody was asking about the policies and really going deep there. We are still at the beginning, guys. Please give us a chance. What we know is that the MK Women's League is a relatively autonomous structure. In terms of the MK party, we say we're advocating for policies that ensure sustainable development, security, and prosperity for South Africans. And that is formulated within the party. And it will be the same. You know, those policies are going to transfer to women. And I'm sure some of you in the media have seen some of the statements that we are beginning to put out, even though at the moment it's only myself and my colleague in the national office, and we are trying to grow our base. We've said that we are at the initial stages of drafting our constitution, policy documents, etc. And I'm sure that when we get to it, we'll engage at a deeper level. But from a reality point of view, we're very passionate about issues that affect women, our children, our people with disabilities, and we want to show that in terms of everything that we do, we will put women at the center of it, whether it's political issues, economic issues, etc. We'll always ensure that women find themselves at the center of it, and women are positioned the way they are supposed to be positioned on every issue. I'm trying to just sum up these things, and I'm hoping that I've covered as much as I could. I'm just surprised that you guys are not asking questions to the Youth League here. Thank you.
Kwaza Umkhonto, Kwaza. Thank you very much, SG. But for now, we're still trying to make sure that the Youth League at a provincial level, there are structures, because there are many pressing matters affecting young people across the country. Currently, NSFAS is not doing what it should be doing. Young people are throwing out their campuses, their races. Also, SG, what we are currently busy with right now, in terms of universities, when they take applications, they take beyond what they can accept. By that, you pay for the application. And when they reject your application, they don't give you back your money. So those are the issues that we are currently facing as young people, but in due course, we will be calling the media and outlining our program of action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the responses, very clear responses. We promise that we'll take the second round of hands, but I know that the answers answered even many other questions. So in case there is a minor miss, we'll allow that opportunity. Let me just recognize all the hands first before you start. It's hand number 1, hand number 2. So we've got 2 hands. Oh, 3. All right. Yeah, it will be a clear last round. You can start there. Oh, you changed the seats. Okay.
Is it okay? Can I just shout? I think I'm ready.
Okay. Oh.
Thank you. I just want to get your reaction. I think you're aware of the emergency cabinet meeting that took place or that is currently underway today about the cabinet. Perhaps as the MK party, what inputs have you made, or have you engaged GNU or the president on your budget proposals? And perhaps as the MK party, what are your proposals on government getting that or making that 60 billion rand shortfall? Also, as a progressive caucus in parliament, you, the EFF, and those 2 other parties, have you actually engaged on this issue? And yeah, just what your expectations are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 2.
No, thank you very much. I'm Lunga from the Mail and Guardian again. I do not think I got satisfaction on the issue of Mzwanele Manyi and the Deputy President as to whether that speech was indeed sanctioned by the President, and if not, have any disciplinary processes been taken? And also, in the reply of the DSG, she said that every single process needs to be sent to the Secretary General. considering that he is conflicted in the issue of Duduzile, would there not be any other person that can take over that process instead of the SG himself handling that matter? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, the last hand. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Khawelo Magoleo from UFM. I'm taking you back to Mpumalanga, Mary Padu. My recollection is that she went to court to challenge her expulsion from MK, and she won. And my understanding is that the law of the land would then supersede that of the organization. And there's no record of MK approaching the court to reverse that decision. So I just want to find out factually, currently, what is her status? Were you able to stop the legislature from continuing to pay her a salary? Is Mem Kwebane being paid a salary from the legislature or from MK? Because as I recall, she was a direct replacement of Mary Padu in the legislature. And SG, with this approach of officials visiting Mpumalanga, is she among the people that you are going to be talking to? Particularly considering the crowd that she pulled when she had a rival, a competing rally rather, recently. And back to national issues, the issue of Duduzile. I'm afraid it's not enough to address us in global terms and say everyone is subjected to discipline in MK, because this is not everyone. This is a daughter of the supreme leader of the party. So there's already a perception, even among your members who express themselves freely on social media and in the mainstream, that she's being protected. So the question is every member who finds themselves in the wrong going to be afforded this luxury of having their conduct discussed at the highest level, as the DSG puts it, to get the wisdom of President Zuma, whether on how to move? Is it not, are you able to agree that if she's seen to be getting away with this or getting a slap on the wrist, it may set a precedent that you may not be able to sustain in terms of discipline? And Mr. Chibambo, you know, people, especially your former party, they seem to be blaming you for the action that they've taken against their member, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And I see you continue to post him. Was there at any stage where there was promise of him coming to MK? And do you feel some responsibility each time you post him, praising him as a leader, and then there's a retaliation from the other side? Every week. Twitter. Yeah, I'll show you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was the last hand, and I'll be guided by the SG, whether it's the TSG first, yes, and then in that sequence. Thank you very much, TSG.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just want to make this clear. Duduzile Zuma Sambudla is indeed a daughter of the president of Umkhonto Wesizwe. But in the Umkhonto Wesizwe, she is the member. She is the member of Umkhonto Wesizwe, like all of us. She joined Umkhonto Wesizwe. She signed the declaration. So within Umkhonto Wesizwe, Duduzile Zuma is a member of Umkhonto Wesizwe. I want to reiterate what I had said, that the constitution is clear that any member, and that includes everyone who is the member of Umkhonto Wesizwe, should you behave out of the stipulations of the constitution, then disciplinary processes, you must be you must be subjected to disciplinary processes. In respect of the matter having to be discussed at the national officials meeting, we embrace the opportunity of being in the presence of the president, and we take that opportunity as an exclusive opportunity, because that is where we gather wisdom from the president of Umkhonto Wesizwe. It was not because it is an exclusive and a special matter. All the matters that the SG has communicated today were indeed discussed in that meeting to get the concurrence, to get the ratification, and also to get the words of wisdom and guidance from the president. That is the first one. The second one being that, but it is on Duduzile. The second one was, no, I'm here to respond on the matter that was directed to DSG, and I am the DSG of Umkhonto Wesizwe. I have responded to that question.
Okay, I think you have responded very clear. SG, if you can come. Yes.
Conflict of interest. I'm sorry, now I remember. In respect of the conflict of interest, the Constitution is clear that the report on misconduct must be submitted not to the Secretary General, to the Secretary General's office. I resort in that office as the DSG. So there is no conflict of interest or whatever. I resort in that office as GO. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, DSG. So the agenda and contents of what we're going to discuss with structures in Mpumalanga will be shared with structures in Mpumalanga. It's an internal meeting, but the aim of such engagements with structures is to acknowledge the fact that there are comrades who are organizing in different platforms. Those who are associated with the former coordinator, Mike Ngobeni, those who are associated with the former convener, Mary Paddy. And we want to have one organization in Mpumalanga. So the engagements will be aimed at resolving that unnecessary parallelism that is existing in the province. And we'll do that in a much more matured political way that will persuade everyone that we should have one organization under one leadership. The details of what is going to happen there will belong to those meetings. I honestly don't think we should subject press conferences of Umkhonto Wesizwe to my views on Mwiseni and what and all of this. He correctly has resigned from the EFF, but I don't want to talk about that. It's not an issue which we can subject the press conference of Umkhonto Wesizwe to. We can respond though to an issue which is raised on what is to be done now that there is a stalemate on the revenue shortfalls, that the South African Revenue Services has not been able to optimally collect revenue that is adequate to fund the medium-term expenditure or development program. It used to be called medium-term expenditure framework, but now it's called development plans. So what we have is a revenue services and a state that is unable to optimally collect enough money to meet its obligations. And because they have failed to do so, they then now want to take more money from poor people from the value added tax. And that becomes the resolution and the proposal of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, because that is what he did when he came into office. The first thing which he did as the head of state and president in 2018 was to increase VAT from 14% to 15%. There had never been an increase of VAT in South Africa for possibly more than 30 years, since the democratic dispensation. We actually had thought it as natural that VAT is 14%. We're taking that, no, 14% is VAT. So actually, the VAT was a synonym of 14%. And then Mr. Ramaphosa came and then he took advantage of that period of excitement and all of those things that came with him, and then he introduced a measure which impoverish poor people, which make poor people to pay more for the basic services, which in any way have been rising in terms of cost as compared to the rising salary levels. So the actions of Mr. Ramaphosa are impoverishing poor people, is to get black people in general and Africans in particular poorer. And now there's a revenue shortfall. He wants to take advantage again and wants to make the lives of our people worse. Rich people will not feel the pain of VAT increases because they are not price sensitive. So majority of rich, mostly white people, they don't even know what is the price of bread. They don't know what is the price of anything. They pay any amount, whatever is the price. But poor people, they calculate each and every cent as to what do we expend money on for food, for transport, for this. So if you increase the VAT, it means there are so many basic services which our people will not be able to afford because there is now an increase on the value-added tax. There's multiple options. I do not know that why, despite there's so many rhetorical commitments, why are we continuing to have the funding model on infrastructure like we do currently? Because instead of allocating the budget directly or fiscal commitments to infrastructure, why are we not pursuing the build, operate, transfer model and work with our friends from the People's Republic of China, from Russia, from India to build the mega infrastructure that we need on a build, operate, transfer model, instead of priding ourselves that we're just going to throw in resources which otherwise were going to be redirected for basic services and needs. That is one. But two, I think there's an issue which has not been resolved, which was raised even in different platforms on, for a government to be able to collect revenue, there must be a base upon which it collects revenue from. That is the economy. And if that base is eroded, the tax base is eroded in terms of its activities, the revenue that the state collects will be far much lesser. And how does the tax base of South Africa gets eroded? It gets eroded through transfer pricing and illicit financial flows, where the major multinational corporations, they do not pay the taxes that are due to South Africa because they engaged in practices and the maladies of transfer pricing. So if you were to check now the revenue projections, where the shortfalls came from, they came from mostly the mining sector, because almost all the companies that are involved in the mining sector are involved in transfer pricing. So the revenue shortfall came from corporate income tax, mostly in the mining sector, because they somehow manipulate the numbers and they bloat their expenses to the extent that they do not declare any profit. If they did not declare any profit, it means they cannot be taxed. And then South Africa ends up losing a lot of potential revenue. And that is what you need, that if this government of South Africa was not an executive that is managing the common affairs of the ruling class or the bourgeoisie, it would take decisive action on optimal revenue collection in terms of what is expected. That is one category of what can be dealt with. So as part of the legislations and the bills that a Minister of Finance was going to introduce in the budget speech was something called the ESCOM Relief Bill, which was going to take, I think, upward of 150 billion rands to ESCOM as part of the immediate interventions. But there are so many leakages in terms of revenue collection that is supposed to be collected and is due to ESCOM, because municipalities do not pay ESCOM, but ESCOM itself as well doesn't have efficient systems to optimally collect the revenue that it is supposed to collect so that it can be self-sustainable as a utility. So part of the interventions that have to be made now is to stabilize the revenue collection streams of ESCOM. How do you optimally collect revenue for ESCOM so that you do not pass an ESCOM relief legislation which is going to appropriate a significant amount of money from the state into ESCOM activities? So there's multiple interventions that can be made in the immediate to resolve the current revenue shortfalls that are now being shifted to the pockets of poor people. And we only need a decisive, clear government that is going to be able to do so. But the fact of the matter is that this so-called government of national unity is a committee of the white capitalists. They are deployees of the white. It was created by the white capitalists. It serves their interest. So they can't do anything that touches the establishment. They rather go and impoverish poor people. They won't touch the establishment because they are scared of their handlers in terms of how the economy and politics in South Africa are shaped. So there has to be decisive action on the owners of money, of those who own huge capital, to get to maximize revenue from their end, not from poor people, but also to make a government much more efficient in revenue collection from the municipality, provincial, and national level, so that we arrest all these leakages. And a different model on how we fund our infrastructure, which will be fiscally neutral, but will still be able to achieve the developmental objectives and agenda that we need. That is basically what a responsible government would consider. But they are possibly going to box each other and end up at 16% instead of 17%, which as Umkhonto Wesizwe, we must still reject with contempt, because we cannot continue to impoverish our people. Of course, we must expand the basket, which is VAT-free, but we must also reject the increase of VAT on all the basic goods and services as is planned. And thank you very much. I think we have covered all the issues that we're supposed to cover with dealing with appointment of leadership of structures, and we will be indicating as to when we are appointing the structures of Eastern, Northern, and Western Capes at the provinces, and then we finalize the other structures. But in terms of the program of action that was adopted by the national officials, by the end of March, all the provincial structures must be in place and fully functioning, and all the fraternal organizations should be having solid and stable leadership structures. And that is exactly what we're going to achieve as a movement, an organization, a liberation movement that understands that you can't just gain political power and you think that you have gained total emancipation. You need to fight for total emancipation, which is political, economic, social, cultural, hegemonic, every form of freedom. That is what Umkhonto Wesizwe is fighting for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I also saw a rumor that even the commissioner of SARS doesn't agree with this 3%. Maybe next time you must direct that question to him. I'll be very interested to know why he doesn't agree. Thank you very much for making time to this very important session. And we do not take your commitment and time for granted. We really appreciate the relationship that we have with yourselves. And on that basis, on behalf of the national officials and the broader leadership of MK Party, the session is adjourned. Thank you very much. Bye.